it is go time to show up to your life, to show up to your communities, to show up to your multifaceted mission. No one is going to do that for you. We do not have time to hesitate. We have time to leap and be held by this planet and our loved ones to navigate whatever comes, but we need to take grounded action on whatever we choose. But this hesitation of the choice and this disassociation from the power of choice and the power to choose is something I can't hang with anymore. I can't.
I want more specifics about the San Diego gridwork situation.
The San Diego gridwork situation it's interesting. So I landed yesterday, and anytime I land physically, there's always a pre-grid working process, which I won't get into right now, but
why not?
Well, we can do that. We can do
Get
that.
into it.
Okay. So yeah, usually if I'm traveling and going to multiple places, I will start to pre-grid energetically the next place while I'm currently gridding the location that I'm currently at. And that can come in certain subtleties. It can come in the actual environment of the current grid that I'm in, getting signs, true like direct signs about the next location that I'm going to. And that usually can give me an indicator of what's happening, is either generally starting to anchor the drop where I'm headed while still allowing what wants to move through the current location to move through. And then when I do go to the next location, it's always an indicator to me how the plane lands. How the plane lands with me in it.
How did the plane land?
Well, the plane landed it was kind of like a very quick descent, and then when we got onto the runway, a very abrupt stop, which is interesting. And so I'm taking in all these pieces, and then when I'm walking through the airport, I'm acclimating to like really fully now anchoring the drop of the full codes and the full codex, and that almost starts to roll. It's kind of like when you put the film in the movie theater film, it fully starts when I'm physically there. And when I was walking through the airport, I just kept seeing this kind of this like cube structure. They were showing me San Diego almost as a cube. And that was interesting to me because it was a cube, but then there were like frequencies of light in these different spheres making up the cube. And so there's something to the cube relating to San Diego. And it's almost this preparation it's a preparation, but it's also a fortification of what is currently being encoded and grounded, because there's a lot of shifts happening to the San Diego grid. There's lots of shifts happening when you decide to move back here. Like that's also going to be an incredible shift for this grid. And so with those shifts, there's like an acclimation period of all these other things. And, people come and go from San Diego, not just travel wise, but moving and location and permanent residence. And so there can be a changing of the guard. And I think that is actually what is happening in the summer period, I'm going to say, for San Diego. And these days leading right up to the solstice are allowing those very unique light codes to really fortify and solidify so that the solstice energies can really, really ground in to allow for beautiful, wonderful light beings like yourself to fully anchor back here onto this grid.
San Diego is interesting because it's such a transient city. I remember talking to Michael Sutton about it, and he sees this as a real estate agent, right? And he's lived here his whole life. And we were talking about this. He was like, it's just people come in and out all the time. Like you meet people, you become good friends, but then they leave pretty quickly. And obviously there's a lot of like tourists here. People are coming to the beach. So there's that very interesting energy combined with the very like young college energy that's very alive, right? And I'm sure you pick up on things. Even like the area you're staying is so different than like where I lived before. You know, it's the energy is so different. And I think that creates such a fascinating dynamic, like grid wise. And I think for me, a lot of like when I lived here, how intense those shifts are of like what the frequency is of this place, because it's changing so often. And then we have the military base nearby, which is adding a whole other layer. It's a lot. I would be curious for you, and not to make this all about me, but because I'm a reference point for the audience, like I had talked a bit, I think very high level. I want to go deeper in with you here around, you know, how I was feeling when I left and how I was getting pushed out, and really like the darkness that was going on here. And then feeling this huge shift when I came back in Feb, and now being like invited back in and feeling like this is where I need to ground in. And I know how I relate to that personally, but I would be curious for you to share your perspective on kind of what's been going on with San Diego as an example.
Totally.
And that dynamic.
I love this. And, you know, I think last summer, and even like this grid right now, and Gaia is showing me right now, it's almost like what happened in San Diego last summer specifically was like kind of like dark goo.
Yep.
Kind of like coming, like just oozing, kind of like oozing out of this grid. And there was a lot there, right? There's major fear frequencies and illusory paradigms being released and also being seen.
Yeah.
And I think so just all of that in this goo ooze was coming up.
Yeah.
And people were feeling it.
I will say, I mean, I remember I just started to feel so foggy and low, and I was feeling what was going on. And I remember, and I lived not like close to the military base, and I was very aware of things that were coming and leaving from that place.
Yeah.
And so I was feeling that energetically, and then watching as people down here are like not noticing the connection, because I know when they're doing the bomb tests up there because I'm right next to it, right? But then I remember going to Joshua Tree and leaving, and then like, you know, grounding into Joshua Tree and coming back, and it was literally, it was like not a third eye visible, a 3D eye visible. I remember this, like, it was literally a dome of gray fog. And I remember entering into it. I was like, what the fuck is this? And it was like, oh, I just got back into San Diego and everything just got depressed. Like it was so palpable like that. But when you're living down here, you didn't realize that. And I think at the same time, it was fascinating because so many people were getting pushed out. Like when I moved, a ton of other people I know moved. And at the same time, a ton of other light workers were getting called in. Like so many people were like, oh, you know, you're leaving right when I'm coming back. And I'm like, yeah, good. Best of luck. Best of luck. So I just want to like add that because I mean, that's what was going on. And there were just a lot of like psychic attacks, for lack of better language.
Absolutely. And those attacks, I think for a place like San Diego, had the intention of having people be disassociating from their bodies in all the senses, the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical bodies. And it's that kind of targeting that I think in these very high frequency nodal points that can really permeate. And I know 2023 in general has, for me, not just personally, but a lot of grid working was happening in 2023 for this planet.
For sure.
Like,
for sure.
In terms of a calendar linear year, 2023 was massive. And it really allowed Gaia to purge and have her come back into her own sovereignty of her body and her nervous system. Just like we have a nervous system, so does she. And I think there's the more of us that ground into this human experience, from a place of wanting to be here,
Mm-hmm.
that's actually how you shift the planet. And that's actually how not only you come into your highest remembrance
Mm-hmm.
and your own ascension journey, that's how she does.
Yeah.
Is by knowing and trusting that all beings on her give a shit.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
and give a shit not just about her and, you know, recycling and all the initiatives. It's like, actually, that's great and that's beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
but really, she's begging for us to be embodied,
Mm-hmm.
for us to be embodied in choosing to be here and choosing to co-create with her, however that is for you. So 2023 just being a massive year overall, and what specifically was happening in San Diego, like you said, there was a changing of the guard also last summer,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's almost like that ooze, that goo in San Diego does feel gone.
Yeah.
But there's, and even in these months that you've been away and been in Arizona, like there's been healing, like energetic neosporin has been put on the wound. Sunlight has been coming down. Different frequencies have been anchoring here. And then you've now had this beautiful resurgence of a whole new contract with San Diego. And it is calling you back for your beautiful frequencies after you've shifted and changed
Mm-hmm.
and come into different, you know, remembrances with where you have been the last couple of months, to then be even almost that much more of this beautiful light bomb back into the grid.
Yeah.
And so it does, like, I haven't been to San Diego in like 12 years, truly, like a very long time. And so arriving back here, it's been really beautiful to kind of sense into that cube that I was describing, but also realizing that there's so much to this cube that's expanding. It's not like a constrictive cube.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very expansive, almost like porous kind of energy, but it can be squeezed like a sponge. Like it can be flushed pretty quickly, but a lot of the frequencies are actually coming from the ocean. So the Pacific Ocean right now, those animals within the ocean are like pummeling the shores of San Diego right now, to kind of move through anything currently happening with the army base, the military base. And, you know, I was telling you before, I felt called to stay near SeaWorld, which is definitely not somewhere I thought I would be staying in San Diego. But there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, even on like a micro level.
Which is what?
You know, really assisting with, it's like, yeah, it's a different kind of clearing going on for the animals, and SeaWorld, to have SeaWorld be SeaWorld right by the sea, I find very, very interesting.
Yeah.
It's like there's a containment there among a lot of other things. And, you know, there, like, I think there's a lot of liberation and sovereignty energy happening right now on the planet. And that is for all beings involved, including the animals. And so there's this desire, even with the animals at SeaWorld, to be seen, to be seen as multidimensional, to be seen as so much more than their 3D forms.
Yeah.
And so I think that's happening for everyone on this planet, including the animal kingdom. Even if they're at SeaWorld, if they're in the wild, like it all matters. It all matters.
Let's zoom out. Can you connect for people why this matters? Like in a very 3D way. Like what, like, because I think we see a lot of these things that are happening on the planet and people are completely unaware of like the impact grid working has on all of us. You know, like when we're looking at things like, I mean, pollution, climate, like our own health issues, relationships, natural disaster, like things like that. Can you connect back like the energetics of all this? What's going on? Why? Because like, I think people hear about grid working and I just don't think it's landed for people unless they've had an experience in their own lives. Like, why this is crucial.
There's many things to share on this. I think from a zoomed out perspective, this planet desires to ascend, and we came here to assist in that. And so what I mean by that is anchoring in frequencies of harmony and love and trust and creation that we can actually create on this planet and create a different reality, not just for ourselves individually and our loved ones and our communities, but for this planet. And we could call that new earth, what you can call that, whatever term you want, but it comes down to being in your heart and being really committed to showing up to this experience, co-creating with this planet. And when you do that, that's actually how we shift the universe, and bring it back into what we're all here to experience, which is creation, unity, harmony in a very interesting planet that has been completely tampered with. And and we're here now to assist in the dismantling of what horrendous things from an energetic perspective have been and happening.
I get, like, to bring it down, it's like grid working is a very real way of, like, for me, it's how I'm doing, like, it's how we do our light work here.
Yeah.
Right. Our light work is our own, personal healing that goes along with, like, our grid work. Right. And so we can talk more about what that means, but I want to, like, paint that real picture for people.
Yeah.
I think that there's so many very, like, spiritual people, healers, and it's like, this is, if you're not doing this, what are you doing? Like, why do you think you're guided different places? Why are you supposed to travel? Why are you supposed to connect with different people? Like, it's like to move unconsciously, like, we can't anymore.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you say this planet wants to ascend and we're talking about creating a new reality, to you, like, what do you believe that looks like? Do you believe that's, like, the frequency changes and so everything shifts on this planet? Do you believe that's like the Mayans ascend and vibrate off and we vibrate into a different, like, what do you believe?
So I believe there's different frequencies that we get to tap into on this planet. And they've always been available, actually. They've always been available. And I'm not going to really go down, like, dimensionally, the different dimensions of Gaia.
Yeah.
But I think we are able to experience, and we're actually meant to incarnate to have the choice to experience these different frequencies of this planet. And some of them are incredibly dense and some of them are not. So I personally believe that it's a frequency embodiment that allows you to connect deeper with this planet, to co-create not just a new reality for yourself, but a new realities, limitless possibilities onto this planet. I think that's really what it is.
So you believe it's basically opening up the frequency bandwidth here to experience larger frequency here versus what some people believe is we're going somewhere else.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe the same thing. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Because I think it's interesting.
There's so much talk, Christina, about, like, Earth stuff, and everyone has their own,
Well, I think that for me, the interesting thing is I think people don't realize how subtle all of this is. Like,
yes,
it's happening all the time. People don't know it. And people think it's going to be like in a movie where, I don't know, like a light shines down from the sky and then you're transported to a new planet. And it's the same thing with people's just psychic gifts, right? It's so actually subtle that people don't realize it's happening all the time. People are unaware that the images in their mind are their clairvoyance, right? And it's that kind of thing where there are so many things now. I'm like, holy shit, I just opened up another frequency portal here. But the same thing could have happened to me 10 years ago and I wouldn't have noticed. I just thought, I would think, oh, that was cool. Right. So I think that's what people need to kind of realize. It's so much more subtle than we recognize.
Totally.
Otherwise, we'd be completely disoriented moving through the reality.
It's subtle because it's part of our awakening,
Yeah.
actually. And I think the thing is like, truly, grid working really only comes into your experience when you've hit a certain level of ascension. I'm just gonna say, it. Like and when I say ascension, I really just mean your remembrance of you as a divine being. Like, that really only clicks in for people. That subtlety, that nuance, really only clicks in when you've moved through the sludge of the densities of the other things in this human experience.
Yeah,
I really believe in that, and so. Not everyone is going to be into grid work because they're not at that phase yet. And that's okay. That's okay. Some people may not at all get there in their incarnation this life, but and that's why I feel a big part of my service and my mission is heart consciousness, because heart consciousness is truly how we connect with the crystalline structure and the nuances of this planet as well.
I just think, like, I hear what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you, but the other part of my ego, like, doesn't like it, that, because I just feel like, why the fuck do you think you came here? You think you came here, like, we came here together to fix this shit.
Yes.
You know, like, that's the thing. And I think so many people who are, quote, awake are still asleep with the fact of, like, this is a co-creative, collaborative experience. We came back here to remember, to work with each other and, like, shift the actual planet. It wasn't a selfish endeavor. And I just don't, like, you want to say you're all evolved. Like, I just don't buy it. If you're not going to places with this awareness about what's happening with the land and, like, all, I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know. That's my ego's issue.
Totally. It's the ego's issue with the collective ego. Like, it's totally 100%. Valid.
Yeah.
Because it is, like, I mean, there's a part of my ego that's like, that's selfish.
100%.
And I know that that's brash, and I know that that's intense and bold to say, but truly, like, when you really step out of your individuation, which is valuable and crucial
and important. Yeah. Super.
Individuation drives the collective. But when you make that shift to realize that it's not about just your ascension, and it's not about just what you create on this planet, like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
We need to step into the greater mission, and that is co-creating in harmony. It's learning different dynamics of this frequency of Earth.
Yeah.
Because most of us have had lives on Earth, and that remembrance in of itself can be a whole journey for people.
Yeah.
But it's tapping into now.
Mm-hmm.
It's tapping into now, and presencing the now is really how we are going to hopefully step out of our own individual stuff.
The thing is that even from a selfish perspective, so to speak, like, you hit a point where your, quote, ascension is intimately connected to the people around you.
Yeah.
You realize, oh, it's involved, right? Like, I mean, my husband, my children, it's like my friends, like, oh, I'm hitting a point where I'm realizing, I can meditate. It's a classic. I can meditate, in my bedroom alone, but, like, what happens when I connect with other people, right? And, like, you're on this planet, you're moving through the world, you're going outside, like, what the frequency is of the area around you is affecting you.
Totally.
So I think even from a selfish perspective, like, you got to look at that, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, we were talking before, I'm like, there's this energy of waiting that I think a lot of people have that we need to not have.
Yeah.
And there's the gridwork aspect, which is connected to the just embodiment aspect of, we were talking about, we have all this remembrance. Like, how did we live in Lemuria? Oh, this is what we ate. This is how we connected. And what are we doing with that remembrance? Nothing. People are doing nothing. And it's like, why do you think we remember? What would happen if we all remembered and tomorrow we're like, screw it, we're all going to act like we're going to do the same shit we just did. Pattern interrupt. Let's do it starting tomorrow. And people just started doing it. What do we do at that point? Like, we're actually creating new Earth. Like, there comes a point where we actually have to change the patterns and live differently. And I think a lot of people have awareness and remembrance, and then we just keep plugging into the 3D template and complaining about it. And it's like, at a certain point, like, I'm just going to go eat fish and fruit, right? Like, I'm just going to not pay for anything with money. I'm just going to trade things with you. Like, and you just start doing it. When you actually start doing it, you change the planet, but nobody's going first.
And it takes an empowered person connected to their sovereignty to make those choices quite simple. And when you do make those choices quite simple, you're able to change your entire reality in so many different ways. And it's just, there is a sense of sacred urgency now.
Yes.
Now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say that from a fear-based lens.
Yeah.
I actually say that from like,
It's actually very
it's
exciting.
go time.
Yeah.
It is go time to show up to your life, to show up to your communities, to show up to your multifaceted mission. No one is going to do that for you. This hesitation, and I have been through it. I still move through waves of this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Same.
Absolutely. But like, we do not have time to hesitate. We have time to leap and be held by this planet and our loved ones to navigate whatever comes. But we need to take grounded action on whatever we choose. But this hesitation of the choice and this disassociation from the power of choice and the power to choose is something I can't hang with anymore. Like, I can't.
Well, if it's like the classic, if you don't make the choice, and it will be made for you.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's why I think so many people we've watched this the last couple of years. It's like people are just getting thrown around, living situations, relationships, careers. It's like chaotic because we're not choosing. We know. Yeah. We're just waiting to be moved. And it's like, you'll be moved and it won't be as comfortable.
Totally.
As if you made the choice. But let's go back to grid working. Like, how do you define that?
Grid working to me is connecting with your heart and allowing your heart consciousness, just your heart in general, to sense into the majesty of this planet. So that's working with the elements, something as simple as just like breathing air. And it's allowing your unique frequencies to move from your heart, from your light body onto this planet and connect with this planet. And in that connection, you change the frequencies of this grid, and that ripples out into the entire world. It really does.
Is that happening naturally without the presence and conscious awareness?
Yes, it is. It absolutely is, I believe. It can make it much more embodied when you are consciously on any level. Again, like, it doesn't have to be incredibly detailed. It's the subtleties that actually awaken us the most. And the flip side of all of this too is these other paradigms of Earth that are trying to hold their grasp onto, different frequencies of Earth. Like, grid working and connecting with this planet allows light to beam onto and anchor onto this planet to create permanent shifts. And so, yeah, I mean, there's like kind of a whole other thing to go down to in terms of like sacred sites and nodal points and all that kind of stuff. But
I want to talk about that, but I think like the way that one of the aspects of it that I want to point out for people that's really important, it's like if you can understand the value of like say energy work on your own body, and you understand like, hey, maybe I've been doing all these protocols and supplements and changing my diet, and then I started doing energy work and I cleared out the energy, and like none of that physical stuff was even working until I did the energy work, and maybe it's not needed anymore. It's like I just want to parallel that to the planet, and like when we're moving energy on the planet and getting to the energetic root, there's a lot of symptoms that can actually change or resolve, and so it's a way that we can support in situations where maybe we feel like are out of our control, and it's like things that make us very sad, places where the people are hurting, the land is hurting. Like, this is something that anybody can do to help like with that energetic root and that energetic healing, and that has very physical effects. I think people don't understand that, and like I know this in my own life, I'm sure you do too. It's like doing work on the land and literally watching as stuff gets resolved, and you travel around.
Yes, I do.
You travel around. How do you know where to go?
So, yes to everything that you just shared, by the way. And I think there's something to be simplified around like, you know, in the, you know, general masses, like the mind body connection, but grid working is really the body to the body of earth connection. So the body to earth connection. And so wherever you physically are, your body, to your point, is feeling certain emotions. It's activating certain things within you and awakening certain things that are yours and not yours. And that's also part of, you know, getting greater discernment as you get into certain layers of grid working and working with the land and the water, etc. And back to your question, I know where to go because I'm either directly invited or it literally will come to me in a dream. It will come to me in certain ways. I also, my physical body kind of is like that board game of Operation. Like I know that when I tune into Gaia, I can literally feel certain parts of my body like I'm almost like embodying her. And in that discernment of where I feel activations or where I feel certain things, when I tune in, it will guide me to certain body parts of the body of Gaia, of this planet. And I say Gaia, you don't have to use the term Gaia, planet Earth, whatever people resonate with, but it's really just a surrendering experiment in terms of where do I get invited to weddings and where do I get invited to, etc. And oh, this retreat looks incredible and wow, I'm really drawn to that. And that's for so many reasons beyond just what you're receiving from that beautiful facilitator at that retreat. So, and then there's also like, oh, I've been wanting to go to Japan for forever. Wow, why have I been wanting to do that? And I'm actually going to take some grounded action to get my butt there to receive and give the activations that I've been guided to give. And so it's really just paying attention, getting present with what is alive for you and where your desires feel like they're flowing. It is for so many reasons. And that those grid points, those locations on this planet are guiding you specifically for your unique light, your unique medicine, your codex to be anchored there. She has something to give you and you have something to give her. And so I feel it's part of our multifaceted mission duty to show up to those callings.
Yeah. What kinds of things might she have to give us?
Great question. I mean, it's funny. I would say she's able to give each being what it needs to help them remember their divinity. Wherever they're at in their journey. If that's, and wherever that they're at with what they're moving through. I think it really depends on like that time and space of that form of you going to that location.
Well, I just to give people tangible, it's like, because I just think I know how the human mind works and people don't get it unless it's mapped out. It's like when I'm drawn to a place, right? I gotta go selfishly and not selfishly, right? So it's like when I'm drawn to a place, there's for sure shit I gotta clear and do whatever I need to go to do, and just being there, but then also usually like some very real stuff. But what I might get delivered might be a physical healing. Like I think a lot of people don't realize you can just physically get healed by going to the right spot, right? I might get delivered past life memories. Past life. Get what I'm saying, right? That are connected to whatever I'm trying to figure out at that time, right? I might get by going to that place, get an answer I've been looking for. Receive a person. You could meet the love of your life. You could meet your next business partner. You could meet, you know what I'm saying? Like a person. It's like the land is trying to deliver you. I mean, spiritual abilities. I mean, how many of us, you just go to a place and she delivers, it just turned on, right? I mean, the oracle was not coming through until I moved to Arizona. Like it had to be in Arizona. That was what she had for me. You know, it was never going to happen here. And so that's one very tangible example. And so I just say that for people because people are so stubborn. I'm sure you get this giving readings to people where I'm like, hey, I'm getting you to go here. They're like, well, I can't. I'm like, okay, well, you're telling me you're struggling with this and that and this. And the main piece of guidance is go here. That's the answer, right? But people are not connecting like what can happen. But I know you and I both have had so many experiences. It's like, just go and you will get what you're looking for. It's that simple. That's
Yes.
simple.
And if you're open to that really being unlocked for you, you will heed that call.
You will go.
If you are hesitating, or if you're saying, if you're not, if you're hesitating on the choice point,
yeah,
that's what it is.
100%.
And so yes, we should feel courageous and empowered to go and be open to receiving. And we don't, there's this other aspect of like not allowing the ego to get into our conversations with how we connect with this planet. I do feel strongly around that. And so it's going to be unique for every single person, but it's very convenient for everyone to say, don't have time. I have other priorities. And this, like what we prioritize is what we co-create with. Yep. And that's how we live. And so until you make a different choice, until you prioritize something differently, this is the guidance. So you get to decide what you do with that.
100%. I mean, the thing is, like, at a very high level perspective, you can't unlock, activate, reactivate new aspects of yourself without doing something new. And, it's Absolutely. Like the land, the energy of the land, even if you can't go somewhere for whatever reason right now, like you can bring the frequency of that into your life in so many ways. And people just want to not make any changes and they want a different result, right? And so I just say that because it's that simple. Like, go, like, change what you're eating, you know? Like, if you can't get to the place, you can immerse yourself in that culture in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
I want you to talk about these nodal points. I want to talk about like what we need to know about Gaia.
What we need to know about Gaia. So I love this question. What we need to know is that the nodal points specifically are hotbeds for a lot of different frequencies. And I think some could possibly argue that, in some realities of light versus dark situations happening, they happen on the nodal points.
Okay.
And that's where certain frequencies of control really control. It's like how they kind of flood things into our reality.
Yeah.
And so I do believe that the nodal points can have an interesting overlay. It's like overlay of certain frequencies of fear, density, disassociation, confusion, etc., and then a huge blanket of love and harmony and unity. And it can be kind of this interesting piling on.
What are some of these?
In terms of locations?
Yeah. Like, where are some of these places?
Yeah. Everyone also has their own opinion, and there are tons online. For me, I think what we think the nodal points are, yes, but also there's so many others that I don't think are being talked about that are those points.
Well, that's what I'm asking you.
So I would say for me, the Nile River in general, huge nodal point. And that basically spans almost all of Egypt. It's not just the pyramids. It's not just Giza. The whole Nile, huge nodal point. I would say I do think the Glastonbury, Avebury, Stonehenge area is huge. Yeah. Huge. And New Zealand always feels like one for me. Both islands, that feels like a big one in South, the Southern Hemisphere. Antarctica, I think most people know that, but Antarctica is a huge one. The poles in general, North and South poles. And I also believe that Dubai is one. I mean, there's there's certain ones that are larger cities that have a lot of shuffling energy, similar to San Diego, of like, whether that's expats or just people kind of shuffling, coming and going and not fully rooting down, that like it's a hub. It's a nodal point of a lot of different energies. And we could argue that for any city in the world, right? But there's something to that.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's this combination of like your own unique relationship with the place, like even the astrocartography, but then also, I mean, there are like West Coast, like Sedona, you know, and like LA, like San Diego. I mean, and then I think like London, like there are places that are very distinctly like, there's some dark shit. There's some dark shit. And there's also the most light of all. It's like you're disoriented, right? And like so much activates and locks, and it's like a love-hate place. It's love-hate places, I feel like.
You feel the spectrum.
Yes.
You feel the spectrum on the grid. And sometimes it can be like that topsy-turvy, you know, kid's toy. It's like 1 minute you're like in the full-fledged density, and then next minute you're in a totally different frequency. And it's being able to almost like ebb and flow through the spectrum that allows you to really connect with what is needed on that grid, and also what you're receiving on that grid as well. So totally.
It's interesting because like some light workers I feel like are really drawn to those places, and other people stay far, far away. Yeah. They're like, I need more stable energy. Yeah. You know?
It really comes down to like what you are uniquely moving through in that moment. Again, in your ascension journey, in your remembrance journey, and what you need, and that also allows for a deepening of what you're receiving and giving to this planet there.
What kind of we talked about different frequencies and feeling the full spectrum, but like what kind of other stuff happens in these places?
What kind of stuff happens at these places? I mean, I think I've seen some crazy shit happen.
Like what kind of you think I'm not going to ask about this? This is a tell-all.
Tell-all.
Spill a Gaia tea. This is the Gaia tea spilling ceremony.
Well, you know,
don't hold back.
I have seen some really wild stuff in Egypt. I've only been twice in this incarnation, and I'm trying to find a place to start here. But I think you can just notice where there's almost like a surface level of certain things going on in the 3D that almost kind of mask what is happening energetically, whether below ground in inner earth or above ground in physical reality. And so you can attune to all of that. But I mean, there's some really interesting things that I've seen in the temples come through, certain altars in the temples. I've seen some not so wonderful things come out of there, and I've seen some beautiful things.
Coming from where?
Coming from, that's a great question. You know, I think,
like, do you consider these like portals, like stargates? Like that's, you know, what do you think is going on?
I think some of these things are stargates.
Okay.
Yes. But I don't always think that they are the most obvious things. Like, I think what you think would be a stargate may not be.
I agree.
And it also could be tampered with, and there's a lot of other things. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel a lot of the intensity comes when we're talking about crossing of or changing of the guards. It's like not just like protection or who's in power. It's like who's controlling the stargate, like who's controlling the portal in and out. And I think that's what people need to realize. And it's like there'll be times when, like with San Diego, it's like, you know, who was controlling what was coming in and out before was not high frequency, and that's where all this stuff was getting pummeled in. Yeah. All these sound frequencies, like light frequencies, all of that. The weather.
Yes.
And then it can change, right? But that's like, I want people to realize that like where this is coming from and what's coming. We're talking about like new things are coming on the planet.
Yes.
And a lot of these places where maybe lower frequencies can come in are also where higher frequencies can come in that actually are the solutions that we're looking for. A lot of the like vibrational technological solutions, which is another reason why to me it's so important we get control of these things.
Yeah. And in community too.
Yeah.
In community with others who have that altruistic heart, I'm going to say, and that desire to create a different grid reality and to bring forth things that are meant to be birthed onto this planet.
Yeah.
It takes, you know, a beautiful high frequency village to change this planet on the macro and the micro levels.
So what kind of weird shit did you see happen in Egypt?
Christina, I mean, so much. I saw some interesting things along the Nile River. There's one place in southern Egypt that's kind of at the base of the Nile River where there was a very interesting, like distorted, I'm just going to say like an animal frequency moving through that almost had like a grip onto Egypt as a portal in general. And
is this something, okay, when you say this for people who are listening, is this a frequency you're picking up on psychically? Is this something are you seeing physical things?
In this particular example, it's both.
Okay.
Seeing physical things.
And so what were you seeing?
So I was seeing like this image of, it's almost like a wolf head almost, but like very distorted.
Yeah. But are you seeing like in the 3D?
In the
like,
no, I'm seeing
animals?
It in my mind's eye.
Okay.
In my mind's eye. Let me be very clear.
I'm asking,
in my mind's eye.
But like, what are you seeing stuff in the 3D? That's what I'm asking. Like, when you're picking up on all of this, is this all what you're psychically intuiting, or is it like going places and actually like, okay, I just saw a warped animal there, or I just saw a split in the field. You know, like, because like I'll go places and it's like I'm like, there's literally a split in the field over there.
Yes.
It's not like it's not just an intuiting. I'm like, it's an actual like gravity is working differently in that little corner.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes. It's all of that. It's all of that.
Yeah.
And I think it can be very overwhelming for people to sense all of that, and that's where I think like, I mean,
well, you don't want to. I'll tell you
exactly.
That. We had this conversation in Sedona on this last retreat. Like, the girls were talking about like how they are like, oh, I wish I could see things like you. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, no, you don't. And I was like, do you know how hard I've had to work to not be in a mental institution with everything I perceive?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I think a lot of people to pick up. I mean, I think if I picked up what you pick up Gaia wise, I mean, I would not be able to function. I would not. I already have so much like sense, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. It's a lot. And
how do you feel safe with that?
That's been a whole journey, honestly. And I think it really starts with, I think it's fascinating for people to look at their birth stories, of course, but I actually think it's fascinating for us to look at how we acclimated to coming to Earth.
Yeah.
Like for me, when I had the cord wrapped around my neck when I was birthed, which is a whole thing, energetically and otherwise, but then I had terrible colic for like 2.5 years. And when I think about that now, I was adjusting, having a very hard time digesting being here physically. And that's just the first 2-3 years of my life. And then I was extremely anxious as a child. I used to pull out my eyelashes. I had no idea why I was feeling what I was feeling. And there's a myriad of reasons for that. Where I'm going with this is, a lot of this is also what I'm feeling on this planet.
Yeah.
It's beyond our family dynamics. It's beyond what we're remembering, you know, the density of being here. It's actually like I'm feeling what has gone down on this planet since I quote unquote was last here.
Yeah.
and it can be very dark and sad and dense and confusing. For me, it was very confusing and very anxious driven. And I know looking back that a lot of that was not mine. And a big part of that was what Gaia was moving through. And it's almost like I had to move through, my emotional body was moving through a lot of what she was telling me she was moving through. And so there's almost this greater reflection that all of us have around how we've related to this planet and how the pain, the trauma that we've experienced here. That's in of itself huge. And then when you begin to open yourself up to all these other aspects and pieces of what's happening now and how we play a crucial role in changing that, we awaken to a lot. And I've really had to get very clear on my boundaries of when I do allow that tuning in and when I don't. And I also think a big chunk of my initial larger soul contract with Gaia was actually transmuting through my physical body, my emotional body, my spiritual body, my mental body, transmuting for her a lot of that density. And that part of the contract has been closed and complete for a couple of years now, but that allowed for a whole new wave of a new contract with her to take root and to become part of what I've stepped into, which is more of these nuances from a place that feels like I still am connected to my own sovereignty as a sovereign being and respecting Gaia as a sovereign being, but also still knowing when I can turn on my operation body and tune into her, transmute what needs to be transmuted, and then kind of like have my own process of closing that down and getting back into my own energetic body, my own physical body.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is so important for people to look at because we can't move forward in our work here if we just don't want to be here. And you think about like what Gaia has to offer us, and like we can't receive that if we're in resistance to her. And I think a lot of people have very subconscious, you know, it's like not consciously aware of the pain and the I don't want to be here, you know, like your relationship with her. Like how can you ever fully ground in? You know, it's like being in a marriage and resenting your partner, right? And then we have to look at that. When you talk about transmuting all this, like you going back into kind of like your birth story and your relationship with being here, but then also you transmuting things for Gaia. What does that look like? How do you do that?
How do I do that now?
Yeah, how do you do that now?
How do I do that now? It's really like it's a tuning into again kind of like that operation form of what her physical body is showing within my physical body. And then kind of like lasering in. It's almost as, again, in the operation game, you take the little pincher tweezer things and you try to remove the bone or whatever it is that you're removing. It's almost like energetically I go in and just like open up. I love working with the energy of the lightning bolt. And so for me, there's a lot of things with that, but I'll like almost like lightning bolt into that part of my body and her from a planetary perspective. And that almost illuminates in my mind's eye what she's showing me is either something to fortify or something to transmute, something to anchor in or something to completely clear. Completely clear, disrupt, dismantle. And some of this stuff can also happen in layers too. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So a lot of it's energetic.
Mostly.
Is it emotional?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think.
Is it physical? Is it emotional? Like, where's that?
Yeah. I think it's a lot. I think emotionally, this year in particular, I have felt more rage and transmuted more rage from my physical body than ever before. And I know a big part of that is when I do these big releases, it's not just for me. I know this. And so I absolutely, I feel it mentally. I mean, there's the physical component for sure of digestion being off, of confusion, of more of that like apathetic kind of fuck it all, like it, you know, beam me up, Scotty, kind of like, this is my last incarnation anyway. Like that stuff is heartbreaking to me. And I've had to move through my own layers of that, of like, I don't want to be here, and choosing to go into that and moving through my own journey with that, for sure, to come back to, no, I love this planet. I love being on this planet. And I think we can actually have mastery lives on this planet without saying, yeah, and you know, I'm a 29-degree Aquarius moon, which I am. And I have a lot of 29-degree
convenient
stuff in my chart, which is great. But it's like, I don't have to, my ego wants to be like, yeah, it's my last Earth incarnation, and then I'm going to do so many other cool things off planet. That's cool. But for me, I'm like, it's just, it infuriates me because it takes us out of the potency of the present moment, and it takes us out of the sacredness.
Totally.
We can still have a sacred embodiment and not take things so seriously.
Yeah, I know.
You can hold it all.
Yeah.
And it's beyond just the duality. It's like there's so much more to this planet.
I know.
And when we really expand to being able to hold it all without judgment, it's like, it's a very vibrant place to be.
It's the best.
It's actually, do you know how many souls want to be here right now?
It's epic. Yeah.
And that's where, like, sometimes I just want to shake this planet into being like, what else do you need?
I know.
What proof do you need to show up to your unique mission in co-creation with this planet? Because what you create is actually being held by Gaia.
Yeah.
So if you think you can do whatever you want to do without really connecting to this planet, you're in for another doozy. Or it's just going to be like, she's an ally. Use her. Like, not just use her, but work with her. And she wants to receive from you. So when we get out of these egoic of like, what can I get out of my Earth incarnation? What kind of trauma can I heal? What kind of karma can I clear? It's like, that's all naturally part of the process when you really get into your heart and when you really allow your heart to connect with this planet.
Yeah. Well, I feel like people are missing like a core piece of being here, and it's what you're talking about. It's like being here is so fucking cool. Like, yes, there's density, but we can create things here we can't create anywhere else. We create in ways we can't create anywhere else. We can love and relate and have relationships here in ways that you cannot in any other density, any other place. Like, there's so much here that there's literally nowhere else you can get the richness, the slowness, like the presence, the very clear different layers of vibration that, like, there, to your point, like, there's a vibrancy here, there's a texture here that you don't get anywhere else. And people are so busy isolating themselves, doing the same shit again and again and again, never having a new experience, living the same day again and again, talking to the same people, having the same conversations. Yeah, I'm not surprised you're bored. Not surprised you're bored. You gotta like experience fucking Earth.
Totally.
Life.
And also, like, what we're really being asked to do from a broad perspective is harnessing our power to create a legacy of love on this planet. And so it's about actualizing the divinity within you.
Yeah.
It's about actualizing, grounding in your creations that you prove to yourself, but in turn, that's actually how harnessing your power in that love and in that unity and in that light and in that harmony from a higher frequency this go around is what allows you to feel the majesty
Mm-hmm.
within yourself and the majesty within this earth game, this earth experience, however we want to call this experience.
Yeah.
It's empowering, it's vibrant, and you get to surprise yourself. That's the other thing, is like, you get to surprise yourself. And in that surprise of creating and navigating, how do I create? How do I harness my power in such a density and blah, 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 all valid. But it really allows you to be like, if I can create here, I can create anywhere.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
I can create with my emotions. To your point, is like, our galactic families are like, wow, like they really have access to like
Feelings.
feelings and
Yeah.
emotions. And like, not to say that they don't, it's just different. It's so different. And our emotions, our physical bodies are our greatest tool in this human experience. I stand by that wholeheartedly. And so the emotions are the key.
Yes.
The emotions and this physical body, and allowing them to be tools as you navigate harnessing your energy, harnessing your potency, harnessing your power to create. That's what this is. And we all have different specificities of unique missions and but like, we came here to create.
Yeah.
We came here to create a legacy of love in our own unique ways. And we came to allow Gaia to also create her legacy of love and, or ascension, or, whatever words you want to float in there.
Let me ask you something. When we talk about the physical body, how are our chakras connected to the chakras of the earth?
Well, it is said that I think this is in like Eastern philosophy. I'm pretty sure. But like, our physical chakra system does mirror kind of like how Gaia looks. So like, the sky, the atmosphere can be our crown chakra. And then obviously our root is very much kind of like rooted into the physical body. And there's a lot here too around like the heart chakra could be like the land area of this planet. Throat chakra can be the water. So there's that aspect of things. But we, on a lot of levels, we are her and she is us. And so what we feel and sense as we create our realities, we're allowing her to actualize her shifts as well. So, but then of course I believe there are chakra nodal points on the planet as well.
Such as?
So Egypt to me is a throat chakra, 100%. And I think there's a lot of things happening on the Egypt grid, specifically around the throat chakra at this dynamic time on Earth for a reason. So that can be anything from like suppression of energies, dampening of energies, and that also can be expansion of voice of energies, of reclamation of this area. And heart chakra, England, the Glastonbury, Avebury, Stonehenge area. Sacral chakra is actually down in South America, I believe, right by, it's so funny, it's called Lake Titicaca, but it's in between Bolivia and Peru. It's a beautiful, beautiful lake. And so there are places that you can, nodal points where you can go and activate, very specific things within your own chakra system, but it's nuanced, and it also can just be simplified of just like, we are aspects of her and she has aspects of us.
How have you noticed, because I know you've had some of your own, like with your health things, right? How have you noticed doing this work and going deeper into this work has affected your physical body? Like, what connections have you made?
Yeah, I think probably the most potent that I've been working on the last couple of years has been my mouth, my jaw, and anything really relating to throat and jaw area, which is huge for me because I actually had, like we all do, in certain ways, I had a lot of trauma around my throat chakra both on and off of this planet, both galactic live wise and human live wise, and my throat chakra being completely distorted, suppressed, and really very traumatic ways. And when I moved through that energetically, physically, it was like, Kerry, we've got to focus on this area now. Like, not later, now. And so that involved like extensive biodentistry. You and I have talked about this, like extensive biodentistry, support and surgery, and like oral microbiome stuff, and how that literally for me has changed my entire body. My entire body. And also this whole transition that I had as well of coming off of the hormonal birth control pill, where I was on high dosage of birth control for 16 years of my life. That's a whole other thing. And I always thought to myself, okay, like I'll get off of it, you know, when I'm married and I'm ready to have kids. And 2 years ago, I was like, no, now. And that was also for a reason. And so I think those are my two biggest things. That are, there's so much involved in those choices. But those were my biggest healing physical body shifts that I've made, because it's affected my gut. It's affected all of the leaky gut, all of the wacky hormonal stuff I had going on. And
But I feel like, I mean, when you decided to come off birth control, I feel like you were really in the swing of like really like starting your journey. Like, I don't think that was coincidence, you know? Like,
it was starting. I mean, there's so much to that too.
I mean, like physical, like grid working, like traveling the world, like that was like the same time. Wasn't it?
It was a year after. It was about a year after. It's funny. I did ayahuasca. I've done beautiful sacred ceremonies. Just one time in my life, 4 times during a week, but like this one particular time in my life, and that actually was a deeper remembrance of this new contract with Gaia, which was, I have not done plant medicine since, and everyone has their own, you know, connection to desiring or not desiring to do that. Absolutely. But for me, that really like ushered me into this new contract. And then the decision to come off birth control was another beautiful decision to allow more of this to take, to become embodied. And, you know, the birth control thing too is like, you know, my future daughter's like,
hey, get in.
Let's go.
Let me get in.
Yeah.
I have one question I want to ask you because I can't let you go without asking you this. So what's going on with Mount Shasta?
Mount Shasta.
The people need to know.
I have many stories about Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta is incredible. And much like many other places that we've talked about today, there are a myriad of frequencies. And there are also physical 3D
who's living there
people who are kind of more of that chaotic, don't quite know what they're channeling or who they are or what they're doing there kind of vibe, to potentially deter you from being in your highest potency and connecting with that particular mountain and area in the highest way. And those are, I mean, there's beings in Sedona, they're in these beautiful high frequency places. And that's not to say that you can't find beautiful people there, but discernment, I will say, is key at any of these areas. Mount Shasta, definitely in particular. It's almost like the beautiful mountain has like all these different tunnels of light beings, I'm going to say, that you can kind of walk down these tunnels and pathways and kind of go into these different realms within the actual mountain.
Yeah.
And then you can go around the mountain and also kind of have your own experiences with like the base and then the different pieces of the mountain itself. It's interesting because there's also a pretty large river that runs not far from the mountain itself. And so the river has its own potency of a lot of different things. But what's going on is really just it is going through a big shift. It's going through a big shift. And I think it's here to assist in us harnessing our unique creative codex.
Mm-hmm.
To me, Shasta has like a big creation energy. You could call it mothering, birthing energy, but there's a lot that happens at Shasta.
Yeah.
In general. So it kind of depends on like what you're going for and or open to receiving there. And I certainly have a doozy of experience there as well.
I've heard a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I think there more than anywhere else is where like I think people have the most stories of like like physical like seeing them.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Which is fascinating.
Yes.
So
yeah,
it's like a wild magic. Like I feel like Disneyland. I'm in the mines, like that kind of vibe.
Or like Aladdin on the magic carpet ride.
Yeah,
like because you can take that magic carpet into the inner mountain, basically.
The inner mountain. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm sure people are gonna have a lot of questions after this.
Christina.
I could pick your brain forever.
Same, chica.
Let us know how people can learn more about all of this and connect with you further.
Yeah, totally. My website's a great place to start, kerryferber.com. Yeah, I think when you are ready and open, Gaia will call. And it's just having that deeper desire to create with her that's going to give you the niggle and the nudges to work with anyone that you feel called to work with. But if this conversation at all landed with you, feel free to go to my website. It's a good start.
And what's next? What's up next for you?
There's a lot up next for me, Christina.
I know.
But
we're in our trilogy.
Yeah, July feels really big for me in anchoring and creating a lot. There's a lot that wants to move through me, and I will finally have the time and space to dedicate to prioritizing all that wants to move through. So a lot of really beautiful like digital offerings, activations are wanting to come through, and a book wants to come through soon. And a lot of other exciting things. So it's going to be a fun time ahead. There's a lot.
Yeah. And where will you be in the world?
I will be in Lisbon, Portugal. I will be steeping like a tea in Portugal.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty. Yeah.
I might catch you in England. Might have to have a little
London calls.
The London calls.
London does call. Yes, you and I talked about that.
Calls.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
So
yes.
Might have a spot of tea over there.
I mean, that's the thing. It's so cool because I'm able to do a lot of other grid work with a totally different access than I had in the States. And Portugal, to me, from like a very physical standpoint, is very centrally located in the world, and I am able to kind of access a lot of really cool, beautiful places quite quickly.
Well, I'm excited to see what opens up for you next. And, maybe I'll catch you across the pond sometime.
Heck yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.